everyone. I am Hassel Aviles, and you are listening to We Have Lived by Not 9 to 5. This will include the highs, the lows, and everything in between. We may talk about some difficult topics. We may cover mental health and substance use challenges. We want to have a real open dialogue about what it's like to work in the hospitality industry. Hello, everyone. We are back. I am Hassel Aviles, and you're listening to We Have Lived by Not 9 to 5. For those who are tuning in for the first time, our intention with this podcast series is to learn from each other. I'm here to tell you about experiences I have lived, and I want to hear stories of experiences you have lived. And this podcast is here to share the experiences we have lived. So these conversations, as you know by now, because we've had a few, always include the highs, lows, and everything in between. We talk about difficult topics, can talk about mental health and substance use challenges in the workplace, all other aspects of the hospitality industry, but we always do it through the lens of lived experience and intersectionality. So for those who I may not know yet, Not 9 to 5 is a nonprofit global leader in mental health advocacy, and we specifically focus on the hospitality and culinary industry. I'm the founding director, and I am really excited today for my guest, Felicia Mayden. Welcome to We Have Lived.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm so excited you're here.
Me too.
I don't like to read people's bios or intros. I always like to hear from the person themselves. So for those who don't know you, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. My name is Felicia Mayden. Born and raised in Chicago. Single mom, executive pastry chef, superhero, all the things.
Yes.
A little bit of my background. I went to Kendall College, got my pastry degree from there. Most recently went to NLU and got my master's degree in organizational leadership. And yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You say that like that's something that most people do.
They don't?
No! You deserve an applause. We should insert applause. No, seriously, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, you said a lot of things, so I'm going to go back a bit. Tell me a little bit about executive pastry chef. The face, for those who aren't watching.
No, I love pastry. I've always loved pastry. I got into it when I was very small because my aunt is the baker and the cook of the family. So when I was little, I couldn't really see, and they didn't make baby glasses at the time when I was small. So they would sit me on the dining room counter while she baked, and I would just watch. So it grew, and my love for it grew, and I'm a very picky eater. Not so much now that I'm older, so my palate has changed, but when I was a kid, I was like, I'm not eating tomatoes and I'm not eating, peppers or whatever it was. So all the sweet stuff I gravitated to. And then high school came, bake sales after bake sales after bake sales. And I ended up having a advisor tell me to go look at Kendall College, and that's where I landed. And loved it. It was hard, rigorous program, but it was fruitful and learning, all the technique and whatnot. And then, landed my first job right after graduation. So I had no time to breathe, but I stuck with it. I originally wanted to work in bakeries, but I started at a bakery and I didn't love it. So restaurants was the next go round. I said, I'm gonna give it a chance, and I've been doing it ever since.
I feel that.
Yeah. Pastry has been interesting. It's been fruitful. It's been scary. It has been a little bit source of trauma just because restaurant life is traumatic.
Correct.
But I love it. I love the feeling that, comes from making a dessert that make people dance, or making them, think about a family member or a friend, or whatever positive message that can come from that. And that comes from food in general, but I just particularly chose sweets.
I love that. No, so I am one of those weirdos that will be at the table dancing.
Yeah, I love that. That's what you should do.
As I'm eating. So actually it happened last night. I'll tell you a quick story and then I'm going to ask you to tell me a story. So I was at Atelier last night and they brought a dessert. It was beautiful. We enjoyed it. And then they brought another dessert.
Let me tell you about Atelier before you continue.
Okay.
So the pastry chef at Atelier used to be my pastry cook.
No way. I didn't even know this before bringing this
She's
up.
my little birdie that flew.
No way, Felicia. Oh, that's so
Shout out to
cool.
Isabella.
Shout out to Isabella because so the second dessert I was not expecting. So it literally I felt like I was 6 years old again. And like your mom's giving you a second dessert and you're just like, what? No way. Another one? And then on top of that, so it was this cute little donut. So donuts, I mean, of course I'm dancing.
Donuts.
Because donuts.
'Cause donuts.
And then on top of that, beside it, it had this little teeny tiny, like an inch cup. And it had just a shot of this drink.
Yeah.
It's kind of supposed to be like milky, but it had different flavors in it. It had like cinnamon, nutmeg, or maybe some allspice. I'm not sure. But it took me back to my childhood because in the holidays, I'm Chilean. And in the holidays, we don't do eggnog in Chile, but we do this drink called cola de mono. And this drink, but it's alcoholic. But this drink was like the non-alcoholic version of cola de mono. So I took one sip and I was instantly at my family, you know, with my parents at Christmas. It's just so wild. I ended up having to go talk to them and tell them, like, I don't think anyone here is Chilean, but you all created a Chilean drink without
Isabella,
knowing it.
She's half of Latin descent.
Oh, that makes
sense.
Yeah. Okay. See, now you're explaining it to me because I was just like, this is wild. Anyways, dessert. Yes, dessert. I'm the dancing person at the table.
We love the dancing people. I'll dance with you.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me a little hospitality story before we jump into the conversation. It has to be from your own lived experience and either funny, favorite, or fucked up. Your choice.
Wow. We're talking about 14 years of experience.
I know. Ooh. You got to pick one.
My favorite, I would have to say, probably in the beginning years of my career, when I worked at GT Fish and Oyster. Shout out to GT Fish and Oyster. May it rest in peace. The rule of thumb was no one left the kitchen until everybody was broken down and cleaned up. So even after the last pastry desserts went out, everybody had to wait until we were all ready to walk out the door. That was a GT rule. That was a safety rule. You know, we were all young and in River North. So when we would clean up at the end of the night after a crazy service, we would go to our neighborhood bar, which was right next door, and just decompress together. And some of us didn't drink. It was just more of a let's have a family thing together. Yeah. And a lot of us took the Red Line home because Red Line is a couple blocks away. So we just together to 2:00 in the morning, knowing we needed to be at home. So I love that. I miss those camaraderie days and when the savory guys would jump over and help pastry so we can all get out of there on time, you know, early enough so it's not crazy. And then we all cared about each other, make sure we got home safely. I think that's what really stuck with me because through probably like to the middle stages of before I became a pastry chef, that continued for me. And it was like, I love this. It was hard. And sometimes we wanted to, you know, wring each other's necks. But at the end of the day, we did it together. Yeah. We got through it together. And then we decompressed together, which is a family, you know, and that's what the industry should be about.
That kind of support, you're right, is not as common to find, or it's rare. It can be rare to find, but when you have it, that kind of support in the workplace makes such a huge difference. Yeah. And clearly stays with you.
Oh, yeah. Some of those people are still like my best friends.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such strong connection. I think it's true because that's when you have those kinds of workplaces and teams where you can feel like you can be yourself. Yeah. You're not performing or suppressing, you know, certain emotional experiences. You're actually able to show up as yourself. Yeah. I love that. And I love the whole, like, everybody helps each other, you know, because sometimes one side is going to need more than the other. Yeah. Or one person might need more support than the other.
I mean, things happen, you know, and
all the time.
like I said, I credit GT a lot because I had to learn how to do savory. My boss and mentor at the time also made sure, like, hey, you guys shouldn't just be standing there during service. Jump over and help, even if it's dropping pasta in the pasta water or sprinkling, the garnish on whatever. It helps your teammate get, to the finish line. So learning that early on in my career helped, make me who I am now.
Of course. It also normalizes seeking and accepting help. Asking for help when you need it. And if you can do that in little ways, it becomes easier over time to ask for it in bigger ways.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to jump into your career these days. That's a little bit from before, but these days, what are some favorite aspects of your career these days?
Well, these days, it's a little non-existent because I just left the industry. For personal reasons, which we'll talk about probably a little bit later.
Okay.
But in my executive pastry chef days, really building up my team was what I focused on, which is why I chose to get a master's in organizational leadership. I saw a need for it within the kitchen because, as you know, as everyone knows, chefs are not very eloquent in expressing or helping their team grow. They want what they want, and that's fine. But it's the interpersonal skills that a lot of chefs lack. And I'm not that type of person. I'm naturally a nurturer. Women are naturally nurturers, but I really wanted to build my team to be the next chefs. And I mean, Isabella is an example of that. She's at this wonderful restaurant, and they just got a star, and now they're, a chef is nominated for a Jean Blanchet Award, and they're doing successful. And she's like nervous and happy, but she feels prepared because I've let her, kind of spread her wings when we were working together. I've let her, express herself in different types of ways, and not just the way that I want it. Obviously, sticking to the brand and, all of that back end stuff, but it's important to boost, the people that are coming up after you because that's what matters, right? We're the ones setting the precedent for the next generation.
Well, that's
so our
leadership.
Focus is leadership. It's leadership, and everybody's like, no, that's management. No, they're definitely different. They're not the same thing. And a lot of managers are not leaders.
That is so true and rarely said and misunderstood. So can you this wasn't the way I wanted to go, but I actually do want to go this way now. Can you say a little bit more about that? If someone pushed back, I'm not pushing back, but if someone was to push back and was like, no, they're the same thing.
No, they're not the same thing. Managers, can stick by a book. They can come in open and they can make sure everybody does their checkout or make sure the cooks are cooking or make sure all of this stuff. Whereas a leader, they harbor all of your weaknesses and your, positive aspects. So your leader is not going to only just make sure you do what you're supposed to do day to day, but they're going to make sure you're okay. They're going to make sure, you are drinking water. They're going to make sure, if you have to take a day off or leave early, that all of the things around you are functioning as well. So your leaders go a little bit deeper and they tap a little bit deeper into your personal, even though I know it's taboo to say, oh, well, leave your personal at the door. We're so far past that now, and we should be past that because your personal affects what you do inside of work. And if your leader is understanding of that, then they will see that, okay, this person is not okay today. Let them go home or let them be, let them do what they're supposed to do. And then when they come back tomorrow, they're going to be okay. That's what leaders do. Managers will be like, I don't care, do the job.
I think so many times too that people... there's a lack of compassion, I feel like sometimes with management versus leadership. I find when you start getting into like those leadership books or you start reading more education, skill building things around leadership, they do encourage compassion as part of leadership. And I love what you're saying about the difference is the distinction between the two being about also helping the team show up as the best version of themselves that they can. And when that's not possible, filling in for that. I think that a lot of times leaders have to step in the name of the team. You know, and oftentimes that doesn't happen with management. So you're right. There's a massive, massive distinction. Thank you for that. I like that. So there's been so many changes in the industry these last few years. And I mean, you've already spoken, you know, a little bit about some challenges in the industry, but if I give you all the power, Felicia, to make one change in the industry, what is one factor you'd immediately change? And I know that's a very loaded question.
But I mean, there's a lot of things I would change.
Let's pick one.
The one that I think is still lacking is diversity. There's a huge, huge lack. And I mean, you can see it on social media, sure. They're like, oh, well, no, that's not true. I work in it. I've worked in it. I've been doing it. There is a lack of diversity. And I don't mean just, you know, able bodies or women and men. I mean diversity. I mean race. I mean everything, gender, creed, whatever you know, want to define diversity as. But there's still a huge lack. And I'm going to say more on the racial note, because if I walk in a kitchen and I look around and I am the only one that is Black, there's a problem. And if I'm the only one that's Black in management, there's even more of a problem. Because say another person comes in and they're not a manager. They don't have anyone to look to or say, okay, I can get to that point. It's not there because there's only one or very few, you know, and far in between. So there is a huge lack of diversity. Huge.
I think especially in leadership, right? Especially in the positions that have the most power and privilege. I feel like that's where I see it the most as well. And you're right. So not just representation matters for the next generation to see that it's possible, where they can see themselves in these, you know, leadership positions. But more than that, I think the more diverse and equitable a workplace is, the more psychological safety it has too. So I think that's the piece too that is really dangerous when there isn't diversity and equity in the workplace, is it almost always means that there's a lack of psychological safety. And so a lot of times you end up with toxic work environments or fear-based authoritative environments, which I mean, this industry's infamous for.
Still happening.
You know, fuck the brigade system. Side note.
We can talk about that all day.
All day. So we, you know, could so easily quit and leave this industry. Especially many did during the Great Resignation. And we stay connected and we're still in it. I mean, I would call myself more adjacent, hospitality adjacent. But can you share what impact this industry, and actually that includes the brigade system since we just mentioned it, has had on your mental and emotional health?
A lot. Specifically in the last 2 years, they've been really hard. I had COVID was actually a really good year for me. 2020 was actually a really good year for me. I mean, it was bad for the world, obviously. But the company I was at the time did the best we could. And I was able to still be creative and still keep some of my staff and, you know, still grow and learn. And they wanted me to. And that was great, you know. And then I did a Food Network show following that. So, 2020 and 2021 were great. 2022 and 2023, they can go in the trash. Hard pass.
Love your honesty.
Hard pass, okay?
Yeah, bye.
And it was I think personally I was doing a lot of imposter syndrome situations. Why am I here? I'm not good enough because this person tells me over here that I'm not good enough. But yeah, I have a track record that's pretty damn good. You know, it might not be up there with the whatevers of the world, but for Chicago and for who I am and for, what I've done in the past, I think I did pretty damn good for myself, but then you get those choice people who it's not good enough for them. So then you start to think like, okay, well, what am I doing or what am I not doing or what can I do better? And then you start to...
You're internalizing.
Yeah, and then you kind of like fetishize it. Is that the right word to say? To try to do more, and then you burn out. And as a mom, and then getting a master's degree on top of that, so I'm over here like literally getting 2 hours of sleep every day, and not showing up for my son the way that I should be able to,
right.
But still trying to have a career and stick within the industry because I want to show other moms that it's possible. It's hard, but I mean, for the first 4 years of my kid's life, it was pretty easy, thankfully, because I got a good circle, but the last 2 years have been hard, and he's the one that suffered. My son is the one that suffered more. And that's even, so then you add that piece on top of there, and then I'm like, okay, so now you got mom guilt, you got the fake imposter syndrome because it's not really real. It's the environment that you're placed in and, the microaggressions that you deal with, and then being a woman on top of that and being a Black woman on top of that. So I'm like pulled every which way. So my mental health, I think in the last 2 years has kind of suffered a lot. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, how do I process this? How do I get through it? One, for myself, give myself grace. I'm still learning that. But also give my son, the mom, show up for him that he needs. Because he's got me. I've got to be the strong one for him because he's watching. So I want to give him the best I can be, but I'm not at my best. If I've got all this stuff going on and I'm not mentally stable, then I'm not at my best. So currently I've had to take a step back and figure out what I can still do within the industry because I love it. I can't stay away from it. I've tried it. It reels me back in.
You tried leaving.
I've tried leaving once and it was not successful at it.
I've had the same problem.
Yeah. And I think I lasted maybe 6 months and I was like, I got to go back in the kitchen. But there's like a sense of greatness behind being in the kitchen and creative, any creative space. You feel accomplished from,
it's empowering.
Yeah. And I can't stay away from it because I love it too much. I know it's weird, but I love it too much. But mental health is important. And if people we don't talk about it enough. We have been talking about it, on the surface a little bit, but people still are like, making it out to be a great thing, like the bear. I don't get me wrong. I love the show, but it's very triggering for those of us who work in the industry.
Correct.
And it is not something that we're like, yeah, this is great. No.
So
No.
the bear. I haven't talked about the bear yet on this podcast intentionally.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of issues with that show.
I do too.
Not because of what the stories are.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start with that.
Yeah.
It's someone's creative art expression. There's a team of people that put together that screen.
And they're wonderful people. And
right,
I know
the
some of them.
screenwriting. Sure, me too. But that's not the point. The point is that I guess the main issue I have with the show is that for people like us who have the lived experience of the true stories that are depicted in that show, because although the show doesn't say it's based on a true story,
but you know it is.
It is based on true stories. So not one story of one person of one life, but on thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people's stories and lives. And we know that those are true.
Yeah.
And they're not depicted in inaccurate way, right? They invested a lot of time, money, and resources to make sure the accuracy was there.
Yep.
For the lived experience of those characters. The problem I have with all of that is that it wasn't trauma informed.
Yeah.
is that it wasn't packaged in a trauma-informed way. And so what has resulted of that show is that so many of us watch it and get triggered.
Yep.
When you don't do something through a trauma-informed lens, you take the risk of re-traumatization. And that is what's happened. And that's what's happened over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And there's many people, that's why they watch this sneak preview or trailer and they're like, hard pass.
Nope.
Because they see that. Right?
Yeah.
When I watched in season 1 that last, or was it second last or last episode, the one with the chits?
Oh, I think the second.
Right, that one.
Doesn't
where it
matter.
all
They all
breaks
blend
down.
together at this
Well,
point.
whoever's watched it knows what episode I'm talking about.
Yeah.
My back broke out into hives.
Yeah.
I had a full physical reaction to watching that show. And that's re-traumatization. That's literally physical reaction to trauma, trigger. And I know that that's one of thousands of stories like this, right? There's so many people that wrote articles about how hard it was to watch that show. And so I think for me, it's like, why not put a content warning on?
Yeah.
Why not provide some resources at the end of the show?
Yeah.
Just like so many other shows do. It's pretty industry standard these days, best
Yeah.
practices when you put content like that together. And there's none of that with that show.
Because they don't, I think people don't make the hospitality industry as a real thing. You know, they're like, oh, that's just normal. No, these are lives.
Correct.
These are human people who are working to make ends meet, to provide for their families, to, you know, be creative. And when you recreate a show like that, that reflects that industry, you have to think about everybody that works in it and all the things that we go through. Like, yeah, you don't see the screaming chefs anymore, well, as much. But, yeah. There's a trigger for you right there, guys. You don't see it as much, but it's still there. And there's a lot of us who feel like we can't get out because, let me backtrack. So there's a few chef friends that I have that, you know, are like, what else am I going to do?
Right.
What else am I going to do? I don't have any other skills. So when you put a show together like that, all of that stuff comes up. Everything comes up. All of the feelings you feel when you're a, you know, baby cook or a first-time server or a host or whatever you're starting off as, all the way through management. Like, people are like, oh, you're a manager now. That makes it's harder. It's harder. When I was a cook, I was just a cook, you know, but as a manager and then putting all of these labels that I have on top of that, Black woman, mom, you know, pastry, because that's another label because people don't take it seriously. This stuff is hard, you know, and
they're all parts of you that
they're
you
all
can't.
I can't change it.
Exactly.
You know?
That's where intersectionality comes in,
Yeah.
right? That's why I think it's so important for us to learn about these terms and expand our language about these experiences, because we try to almost erase these experiences by not using the right language. So thank you for sharing that. I really resonate with your openness and vulnerability.
Yeah.
We met once, and ever since that conversation, I was instantly like so excited about meeting another single parent. So I'm a single mom too.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about parenting. I know. And parenting, being in the hospitality industry, is
wild.
another thing.
Yeah, it is.
So shout out to you,
Thank you.
and to
You
all
as well.
other parents in this industry, because I feel like, especially single parents, I feel like it's an experience that definitely gets erased.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Majorly erased. I feel like very passionate about this, because what happens is that we end up almost pretending like that isn't part of our lives to be able to still stay relevant in the industry.
Well, that's the culture.
That's the culture, exactly. So, you know, share some reflections on what I've just kind of opened us up on. Being a single parent in the hospitality industry.
Well, when I became a parent, well, before, you know, while I was pregnant, I was lead pastry. There's like a gray area between, you know, cook and executive pastry chef. So I was lead pastry.
Okay.
And I was worried, okay, am I going to get pushed out? Am I going to get, the short end of the stick or get in trouble because I have to go home, or call off because my kid is sick, or, all those things started running through my mind when I was pregnant. But thankfully, at the time, I worked with some pretty awesome people who are like, bring your kid to work. We don't open until 4:00. We'll watch him in the office. I had a really great circle, but not everybody has that. You're expected to be here. You're expected to show up. You're expected to do all the work. You're expected to do more. You're expected to do above and beyond without us asking. But if you're, no offense to the dads, but they get a lot more than we do as moms, as single moms at that. And if you advocate for yourself, it's, that's when the angry or the, BITCH comes up and,
you can swear.
Oh, bitch.
Yeah,
that's when they saw you a bitch.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, you're just standing up, In our eyes, we're standing up for ourselves and our family.
That's it.
But in their eyes, you're like, oh, no, she's just a bitch.
Or I'm always called too difficult.
You're
That's
the best.
Difficult.
Well, I get the angry black person.
Of course.
Angry black woman.
Right.
I'm not angry by any means.
No.
Because I raised my voice.
Everyone does. And also that's called passion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course you're passionate about this because it's your life.
Right.
And it's your child.
And I have to live. And he has to live.
Correct.
And what's wrong with that? Well, if I defend it, if I advocate for it, it's a different story. But if a man advocates for it, it's, oh, yeah, let's give them whatever they want. Why? Why is that the narrative? We're literally in the business of people.
Yes.
Literally in the business of people. We're not taking care of people, whether it's guests or the folks that work behind the scenes. We are not doing it right. Mm-hmm. It's service for a reason. We have to serve not only the guests, but the people in the behind the scenes doing the work on the front line.
Well, it starts internally.
Yeah, and that includes moms.
And when it doesn't, it shows. It pours out.
It does.
Everything stems from the top or from the inside, and then eventually gets to the customer anyways.
They can feel it.
Of course they can feel it. You can feel it in any establishment. I pick up on stuff like that all the time.
Instantly. You
go into places. You read body language.
Yeah.
There's a certain tension. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, okay, I think for me too, I want to address that also. There's so few times when folks will accommodate the necessities of being a parent, instead of the parent having to accommodate their whole entire existence to just fit in at the workplace. And, even this morning, like it's Sunday morning, and we're here bright and early.
Doing it.
On this beautiful set.
Doing it.
That Terms of Service put together.
It's so cute.
The whole production team.
Ew.
Shout out to Biko.
Yay.
And no, we're here though. I want to call this out because we're here early.
Yeah.
And I think for us as parents, this is normal.
Yeah.
We're up early.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
All the time.
Even if we don't want to be.
Very much when we don't want to be.
But we do it.
No one cares. Not even our kids, especially not our kids.
Yeah.
But also, a lot of the industry, doesn't operate or bright and early. And, some of it does for sure. But it's, I think it's uncomfortable sometimes to ask for what we need.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage us to sit in that discomfort.
Yeah.
And for, folks to understand that like all of us have different needs.
Yeah.
And so sometimes accommodation is required.
Yeah.
And, and I think that it's important to talk about and sometimes difficult to talk about. But if we don't, like you said earlier, if we don't, then like,
who's going to do it?
We're erased.
Yeah.
No one does. Exactly. Our experiences are erased.
Yeah.
And as a single parent, it's really, really difficult to try to make things work for all parties without, like you said earlier, like putting the kids last.
Yeah.
As if they know, like those are our babies and
literally.
the next generation, literally.
Yeah.
And I think moms and parents need to be accommodated more and listened to more because oftentimes there are ways to make it work.
Oh yeah.
We just aren't listening and we're not getting creative.
Yeah, there's 100% times to make it work. And I think one diversity, equity, inclusion professional told me once. She said, I will always hire a single mom. And I said, well, why? And she said, because no matter what, you all will always make it work. No matter what. Even if it's, after hours or at random hours, or, you have to cut through corners or make something shorten, or whatever the case may be, you always make it work. You have no other choice but to. You have no other choice but to. We work just as hard as anybody else. We have to take care of our kid. We have to make sure they're okay first. And then we'll show up and show out a lot.
100%. And as my kids have gotten older, I've actually started to learn that I actually have to come first.
Yeah.
And then them. Because actually, when I'm in a better place, I can actually show up for them.
In a bigger way.
In a much bigger way. And actually show up for my career in a much bigger way.
Yeah.
But it's so much unlearning, because this industry, I feel like, really brainwashed me to put myself last.
Yeah.
And so it took me decades to unlearn that and unravel that tangled knot of I don't matter, everyone else matters, what they want, what they need comes first.
I'm still learning that.
Right. I'm saying, like, I have teenagers now, right? So you have a 6-year-old, I have a 13 and 16-year-old. So you will get there. You're already there. I can hear it in everything you're saying.
It's
You called
facade.
yourself, it's not though, you called yourself a superhero when you introduced yourself.
When I put that cape on.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
You're
right.
I know.
It's still.
You are a superhero. We are superheroes for what we do.
Yeah.
And by the way, most people, if you're not a single parent, you don't even know half of what we're talking about, because we don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it. But you know what? And not to just, just focus on single parent. It's also
all parents.
It's all parents. It can be on the male front. It can be on the wife, whatever the case may be. We all have our struggles, right? But I know what it feels like to be a single parent. I don't know what it feels like to have a partner. I don't know what it feels like to, I don't know any of that. So I'm speaking only from single parent experience. And that doesn't invalidate everybody else.
Never.
But this is my experience.
Thank you.
And connecting with other moms is different. But then connecting with single moms, we can look at each other and be like, girl, I know. And a lot of folks don't understand that. They're like, oh, well, it's not just about the single mom.
Of course
I'm not singling everybody out. Relax. Chill out. This is just my experience. This is our experience. We get it on a different front, but we all have the same.
Thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah.
Because you're right. In no way am I trying. This isn't the trauma Olympics. We're not trying to compare traumas.
Yeah, we're not one-upping each other.
We're not at all saying ours is worse than yours.
Right.
I think, to your point, we're just trying to share our lived
story.
experience.
Exactly.
That's what We Have Lived is about, is just sharing our lived experience.
Yeah.
And this is what I know.
Yeah.
This is what you know.
Right.
And when I met you, this is what we connected on. I really heard myself in your story. And so thank you for sharing. And thank you for pointing that out, because that's really important.
Yeah. You know what? a lot of folks tend to say that to me because I am boisterous about my experience. If you ask me, I'm going to be like, word vomit is okay. But I think a lot of folks tend to be a little selfish when it comes to certain things like that. And they're like, well, what about my experience? I'm not saying your experience is not valid. I'm just saying this is mine. And that's where my emotions are coming from. And I guarantee you, if you listen to what I'm saying, something will resonate with you. And then we have a bond. Now we just connected on a different level. But that doesn't mean our experience are going to be exactly the same. They're going to be different, but something in there is going to be similar, and then we'll connect.
I agree. I also think probably one of the reasons that you and I are vocal about this is because we've grown up in workplaces, we've been in the industry where our experiences were never part of any conversation or any equation. So it's not about comparing, it's just about saying, okay, so everything that I've been a part of has never considered this experience.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's why I'm so vocal about it. Is just because I've never worked in many workplaces where this experience was even a consideration.
It's still not.
Right. So that's why that's why I feel so passionate about talking about it. It's not about comparison. It's about, we do have to consider that there are parents in this industry, and we can't keep acting like the majority are just 18 to 24-year-old single, people. I mean, it's just, we have to make more open, more understanding and compassion, and listen to more different.
Listen.
Yeah, active listening.
That's the word. Listen.
And then other times we'll listen to their experiences. Yeah. Because everyone's matters.
Everyone's matters.
Of course, 100%. So speaking of everyone mattering, since 2020, I want to acknowledge, how much we've been addressing, or I should say, starting and trying to address inequity in the workplace. I think we have a
very long way to go.
I want to acknowledge that, obviously. And I think that I also want to acknowledge the connection to society and its structures and its systemic oppression and systems, and how that shows up in the workplace. And, because what happens outside always shows up.
Oh, yeah.
Inside.
100%.
And I think what happens in hospitality, in restaurants and bars, hotels, etc., is it's almost amplified. It's almost like a microscope of what's already happening out there.
Oh, yeah.
So talk to me, with your experience having done your master's of organizational leadership, and understanding that, we are a few years after racial reckoning of 2020. And, what do you wish leaders were more focused on?
Leading, first and foremost.
Basic leadership skills.
At the very least, basic leadership skills. At the very least, like, so many chefs and front of house managers, because they're guilty of it too. All of us, no matter where you are, if you're in coffee shops or if you're in, hotels, restaurants, whatever, etc. Just basic leadership skills, basic listening skills, kind of pull your emotions out of how you react to, especially, and I'm speaking from a manager standpoint, pull your emotions out of how you react to your subordinates. And I know that's kind of a bad word to you. Not bad word, but I personally don't like the word subordinates because it sounds so like military-esque.
Agreed.
And,
So like your team.
Your team, that's a better word. And just having a little bit of compassion, because like I said before, if you allow your team, you may have that one person who's having a bad day, and that's okay, because we all have them. And a lot of managers put their bad day behind them, and then they take it out on their team, and they don't realize they're doing it. If you're having a bad day, cool. There should be at least one person you work with that you can be like, man, you know what? Fuck this day.
Exactly.
And then you go back out there and you perform, right? Your team is going to have the same, but they're looking to you to help them through that. And as much as you may like check your, emotions at the door, blah, blah, blah. That's not going to happen. It's going to come into, the industry is going to come there. But you have to realize that, everybody's going to have some sort of struggle. And I struggled a lot with being Black. I still struggle with this every day.
Of course.
And don't get me wrong, I love being Black. Yes. However, it's hard. You have to, I realized, I used to say that I don't code switch, because I don't really code switch a whole lot. I don't really speak a whole lot of slang. I don't, do all the crazy ghetto stuff, if you will. I don't do all of that sometimes. But if I'm comfortable and I'm the same way around everyone. You'll get this loud and, crazy, energetic person. I also used to do theater, so that's another aspect of my, personality that comes out.
Sure.
But I've realized that as I got into management, the code switching does happen, because I don't want to be perceived as this angry Black woman. I don't want to be perceived as difficult, but that's like a woman thing. But on the scope of race, I don't want folks to think like, oh, she's from this area, she's not smart, or she's not this, or she's not that. And that messes with you a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and it's like, who do I go talk to? Who do I go talk to? And people are like, oh, well, you go talk to HR. Go talk to HR. What? When HR doesn't look like me and they don't know my experiences? What? They don't know where the feeling is coming from. And a lot of times I was watching someone on it was an influencer on Instagram, but she was a clinical psychologist, and she was saying, you know, we have to get out of labeling people angry, because the perception is that, oh, they're just angry, they're just reacting. But it's usually something deeper.
Always.
You know? And the analogy she used was, think about the Titanic and iceberg. And the Titanic hit the iceberg, but what they didn't realize was the iceberg was deeper than what they saw on the surface. So your anger is on the surface, and then stuff, you know, below that could be adding to that anger. It's not just a stereotype. It's not just based on race. It's all of these things. So I code switch a lot more than I want to admit. And I'm learning to get out of that. I am who I am. If you don't like it, you can kick rocks. I don't care. I don't care. I'm an educated Black woman who's a single mom, and I will do and show up for everyone. You don't like that I'm Black? Bye. It ain't changing. I'm not going to, even if I wanted to, I can't change it. I don't want to. I'm not going to. It's who I am. I came from a Black woman. She came from a Black woman. My brother's Black. My cousins are Black. They ain't changing, so I'm not changing. You don't like it? Oh, well.
And it's beautiful.
And it's beautiful.
And you're brilliant.
Thank you.
And the people that don't see that and, you know, are stuck in this systemic racism of our society.
It'll come back on them.
And of the industry. It's so... Thank you for sharing your story and being so blunt and honest, because I think we need to hear it like this, exactly like this. Our industry was literally built on the backs of these problems. Like the systemic oppression and racism is built into the industry. It's embedded into the foundation of hospitality, of the beginnings of hospitality, beginnings of restaurant, beginnings of the tipping system, beginnings of, right?
Oh,
There's so many aspects that are still happening, still present, still being practiced today. And it's disgusting and harmful and actually hurts everybody.
Yeah.
That's the other piece that no one wants to talk about.
Oh, no, they will never tell you.
Doesn't benefit anybody to treat people this way. And to act this way and to hire this way and to all of these things. And you're so right, when there's that lack of representation and lack of diversity, lack of equity, lack of inclusion, you're so right to ask, where the fuck do you want me to go? Where am I supposed to go?
You know what happens though, right?
That's the thing. Like, so what are you supposed,
You leave.
The whole thing is by design.
Yeah.
To really keep us where we are.
Yep.
You know, because what you're like, your example is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Where the fuck are you supposed to go?
Where do you go?
For real though, you know, if you work in a small business, where else?
Do you go?
If everyone else doesn't look like you, doesn't have your experience, that's a valid question. Where exactly am I supposed to go to deal with these, you know, inequity issues, with these problems?
And it's everywhere. It's not in just... A lot of people are like, oh, that's just restaurants. No.
And that's why I said it's
everywhere.
Outside comes inside.
Yeah. It's everywhere, you know, and it, like I said, when you're like, where do you go? You leave or you open your own. And then it's like, when you open your own, then you're like, oh, here's the imposter syndrome. Here's, you know, do I belong here? Do I deserve to be here? You know, is this the right decision to make? Who do I go to ask for help? Or, you know, you have to, and I get emotional about it, but it sucks.
Yeah. It does.
And nobody talks about it.
Exactly. And there's so much pain and suffering that comes with these experiences. And it's so important, to share this, because we're not just talking about it's unfair or unjust. We're talking about there's emotions. And thank you for sharing these emotions, because it's real and it's important. The other piece I want to highlight is so much of what you described about check your shit at the door, check your emotions at the door. It's not humanly possible to fucking do that. It's dehumanizing. You can't just pretend like your humanity is just going to be checked at hung at the door like a coat, and living there over there.
Like, I'll pick it back up when I leave. No, that's not.
You're a human being that has emotions. I'm a human being that has emotions. All of us are emotional beings.
Yeah. I mean, you hear people talk about, I go in the cooler and cry. Why?
Exactly.
Why are we doing that? Because if you cry in front of everyone, it's, you're sensitive. You're not strong enough to be here. But let me, a Black woman, go in the cooler and cry, or cry at my station, or vent to another manager or whatever. It's like, she's not strong enough. She can't handle it. No, I'm pretty sure I can handle a lot more than you. But right now you push me to my fucking brink, and I'm trying not to beat your ass right now. That's what it is. So I'm going to cry through it,
Felicia.
And then I'm going to come back and show you the fucking superhero that I am.
Absolutely.
And make you feel small. Sorry, not sorry.
Here's the piece, though. Vulnerability is the strength.
Yeah.
It's not strong to repress and suppress your emotions. Yeah. Sorry, hospitality industry. But it ain't.
Not sorry.
It's not strong to hide your emotions and pretend like you don't have them.
You can feel it.
You just did, what you just role modeled, that's vulnerability. Yeah. And that's a strength.
Yeah.
What you just depicted, though, but that is literally strength in action. Thank you for showing us how to be strong. Because that's what it looks like, is to be vulnerable, is to normalize emotional experiences, And so, this whole strong bit, ain't it? It ain't it.
It ain't it. It ain't cute. There's nothing about it you want to be strong, obviously, yes. But if you're not strong enough to say, man, that's fucked up, and that hurt me, and I need a minute. If you're not strong enough to say that, something is wrong,
And I think that's what this whole podcast is about.
Yeah.
It's about that, yes, there's many things wrong, and we need to talk about these lived experiences, because the only way to create meaningful, impactful change starts with acknowledgement. Exactly. Yeah. Starts with the acknowledgement, then it continues with the talking about it and the having conversations and the humanizing of these topics. And then, and only then, can we start talking about
how to move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I so appreciate you coming and really showing up as the best version of yourself. No. This is the most beautiful, brilliant side of yourself, in my opinion. And I so appreciate you sharing that with all of us. So I want to ask you two final questions. First, where do you find yourself focusing on as you look to the future in your career?
Oh, man. You know what? I'll be honest, I'm all over the place right now.
Yeah.
Because I just left my restaurant, or the restaurant I was at.
Right.
Because I'm in search for that culture. I'm in search for that environment. I had it once before, and I was like, I can do that, but maybe I need to step away to come back to it, and that's what I've done before. Like I said, I can't stay away from it. It's only been 2 months, and I'm like, I'm gonna go back because there's people like me.
Yeah.
And I know we wanted to talk about this, but I have been doing a lot of work with abundance setting lately, and these are a group of moms who know what it's like.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, tell us.
Abundance setting it was founded by Beverly Kim, Chef Sarah Stegner, and I believe Jody Fife. And they're all working moms. Okay. And they wanted to create a safe space for, moms in what it's like in the industry, and encouragement, and, show that we can do this all together. And all of these moms are business owners, and they're restaurateurs, and, they have catering companies, and they have all the things, and they created a space for moms, and I was invited into that space. The same event I met you at, I was invited into that space, and I'm like, oh man, was this what I needed? At first I was like, I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need
The resistance.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. What am I gonna do with these people? What am I gonna do? What are they gonna show me that I don't know? But I didn't realize I was sitting at a table with a lot of the ladies, and we did like a mentorship program called 3 Moms, 3 Mentors, or 3 Moms, 3 Chefs. And we were paired with chefs of our same, background, basically. So I was paired with Sandra Hull. Shout out to Sandra Hull. And I was like, man, when I signed up for it, I'm like, do I really need another mentor right now? But I think it's important for us to have mentors at every stage of our careers. And so even though I've, been a cook, been a lead pastry, never quite been a sous chef at the time, but then went to executive and learning how to navigate through that. But then to be with another mom who's gone through it, that's wild to talk to her and have the same, like, what do I do with my kid? How do I do, childcare? How do I afford it? How can I start a business? And I'm on that journey of, okay, I want to get out of the industry for a little bit just to give myself some grace and relax and, like you said, unlearn those, bad aspects of the industry.
Yeah, they're harmful.
They're harmful.
Yeah.
And if you don't unlearn it, then it sticks with you.
Exactly.
And then you're stuck. And I'm not one who needs to be stuck. I will never be stuck. I will go crazy. No, we're not going to do that. No, strong Aries vibe. We're not doing it. We are not doing it. We will sit at home and cry every day, but we are not going to be stuck. That's the last thing I'm going to do. So,
amen.
Working with Abundance Setting, I was like, man, I have all these moms who are badass business women. I was like, dang, I'm going to lean into it. So I'm leaning into it. And, we just did a dinner the other day with Chicago Chef's Cook and leaned into it. Chef Stegner's like introducing me to everybody, Art Smith and all these wonderful people. And I'm like, man, I found my people. And they're other moms.
It's really cool that you're describing a community.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like community care in action. That's what this abundance setting sounds
That's what
like.
it is.
That's so beautiful.
Exactly what
Thank
it
you for
is.
sharing
Yeah.
that. It's so important for moms to know that groups like this exist.
They exist. And if I'm one who's like, no, I'm not going to reach out. And
so you reached out to them.
Well,
good for you.
Kind of. Chef Beverly and I had like a little tit for tat over Instagram in like 2020. And it was because she was represented in a Black space. And I was like, hey, hold on, that don't work. How is she speaking to a crowd of other Black folk who want to work in the food service industry? You're not the representation.
So you called her in?
I was like, wait a minute, that's what is happening here.
Right.
You had a Black influencer who reached out to you to talk to other Black folks in the food service industry.
Did the conversation go okay?
The conversation went well.
That's amazing.
Oh, she was super receptive of it.
Great.
She understood where I came from. And I didn't meet her with, at first I was hot about it. I was like, wait a minute, this Asian lady ain't gonna tell me what my experience is. But she was open to it. She was willing to listen and willing to understand where I was coming from and vice versa. I also can't just say, that's not right. I have to be like, okay, I see why. I see why you were chosen.
It sounds like you were both willing to listen.
Absolutely. Right. And that's what we have. That's what we need more of.
Totally. Like we were saying earlier, listen.
The key. I legit have it tattooed on my body to listen. It's a reminder to always listen because you might hear something that resonates with you. You might hear something that you understand before you react. We always react before we actually listen to what people are saying.
It's so true.
And Beverly is a good example of that. And Abundance Setting is not just for moms. Don't get me wrong. It's for everyone. Yeah. Their focus is moms, but they help everyone. Like you said, it's community.
It is community care.
And they are the chefs that care. They are the ones that want to help other small businesses. They're the ones that want to invite people to the table, and everybody can have a head at the table, not just a seat, but they can be the head. And that's what they're showing. That's what they're encouraging. So now I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, are we gonna, you're out of the industry working for other folks. What are we doing next? So now I'm like, well, I guess it's time we start a business, because that's the goal, right?
Gosh. Felicia, you know what's cool? We usually end on a story of fucking first times. So
Oh,
FFTs. Man. But you just kind of talked about yours, like what's happening right now. It sounds like you're entering an FFT time, a hard one, where you have to stay vulnerable.
Yeah.
It will feel scary and be very uncomfortable, but you're doing it. And you did it today here with me.
Yeah.
And you're doing it in your career. And I just feel like we are all so grateful.
Mm-hmm. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be in a space. Now I'm going to do it for myself. And nobody's going to tell me what to do, how to do it, when to do it. I'm going to tell me, and then I'm going to have to look in the mirror and be like, you know what, boss? You ain't show up today. We get a little crazy. We talk to ourselves at that point as business owners, but that's the goal, right?
Felicia, I do this every day.
I know, right?
I give myself pep talks every day.
But you have to.
I had to do it this morning even before coming to meet you.
Listen, so did I. I was like, wait a minute, is this a good idea?
But yes, look at us.
Good. Right. We're here.
We're here.
Doing it.
We did it.
That's that superhero cape we put on.
Every day. So thank you so much for sharing your story, for being here. And this was such a special episode. I really can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate what you're doing and sharing your story. And you make it look so easy, and
stop. It's hard.
No, it's not.
It is.
It is excruciatingly difficult. So, anyways, this has been another episode of We Have Lived by Not 9 to 5. Thanks everyone for tuning in.